Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead universe is about to expand this Friday on Netflix as we are reunited with the world's best safecracker. This is my review of Army of Thieves. With the early stages of the zombie apocalypse as the backdrop, Ludwig Dieter is recruited by a mysterious woman to lead a group of aspiring thieves on a series of top-secret heists throughout Europe. Now, before I properly start with my review for Army of Thieves, I want you to start the conversation down in the comments below. That's the most important part. Anything and everything, just let me know your thoughts on it. And if you like what you see here, make sure you click that subscribe button so you are always aware of any and every future conversation about your favorite movies and TV. So I really enjoyed Army of the Dead earlier this year. There's a review for it right here if you want to check that out if you haven't. And I was curious about this film, but something that left me precautious about it was that Matthias Schweighöfer, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who plays Dieter himself, was also directing the film. This was not being helmed by Zack Snyder. I think the biggest strengths of Army of Thieves rely on character and the character interactions. This band of misfits and their back and forth, their chemistry, their charms on screen are the most interesting part of this film. And I thought the performances were all really good, especially from Nathalie Emmanuel. She was my standout. And Ruby O'Fee, she was great. I'm not terribly familiar with her. I know she was in Polar, but I never actually saw Polar. But they were the standouts. Even the action sequences, I thought, were clearly not directed by Zack Snyder, but I thought Matthias did quite a solid job, especially given this is his first big feature film. It could have been worse. Everyone does such a great job. Everyone is interesting in their own way with their own motivations, which is something that really worked for Army of the Dead, so I was really happy to see that work here. And I found these characters and their relationships so interesting that I was much more invested in between the heists themselves when they're actually cracking into safes. I was interested in the between those things, where we see these characters actually interact, live together, plan these heists, get to know one another, what makes each and every one of them tick, what's the backstory between all of them, how did they all come together. I found that to be the biggest strengths of the film, pulling it together. Not to say that the heists themselves are not interesting. I think they're really cool. You do still get a lot of interaction that builds from those in-between sequences when they're actually pulling off this heist. Something that caught me off guard in the best way possible as well was the kind of mythology that was created around these safes that they want to crack in throughout Europe, from Paris to Prague and everywhere else. Is that these are safes that were built by this one guy who's actually played by the man who played H.G. Tannhaus in Netflix's Dark. Watch Dark if you haven't seen it. And these three safes, these three big safes, were supposed to be uncrackable. They got all these relationships with Norse mythology and whatnot about these legends of the Valkyries and Odin and the Twilight of the Gods, which just so happens to be the one in Vegas that they want to crack into in Army of the Dead. Obviously, being related to Norse mythology caught my interest and had me glued to the screen. So I like that there's a little bit of a story, a history about these saves that makes them related to one another and makes Dieter himself want to crack into them. I thought that, unfortunately, overall on a story basis, Army of the Dead was just hitting it too close to home to stand out. The framing of the film being on the early stages of the zombie apocalypse, as everything is already going on in Vegas, but he's taking care of this one thing throughout Europe, I think it hits way too close, and I would have preferred a little bit more distance between the films. There's something that they try to bring together, putting the two films together, that is, Dieter is having these random nightmares about zombies, but that never really affects this story. It's always just because, well, Army of the Dead is going to happen in the future of this character, so we have to reference it, and it always felt forced. And in that sense, Army of Thieves is kind of the worst kind of prequel, where it attaches itself so much to its predecessor, but because in the film's timeline it's happening in the future, we have to kind of not do anything against what happens in that film. And I think it hurts this film very much. It feels like it's playing it very safe. No pun intended, but Army of Thieves play things out exactly the way I expected them to. These characters ended up exactly where I expected them to. There were no big surprises. It's very entertaining for its runtime, though it does overstay its welcome a little bit at 2 hours and 10 minutes. It also doesn't add any brand new depth to the Army of the Dead, or even to Dieter's character himself. I found him to be quirky and funny and charming, but he was about the least interesting character in this random troop of misfits that all had their interesting backstories and interesting struggles that brought them into this life. Dieter was just because, yeah, he likes cracking safes, and I already knew that from Army of the Dead. And the fact that the film plays it this safe just takes a lot of tension away. So in a heist film, you kind of need tension. You kind of need to be unsure, are they gonna get caught? Are they gonna indeed break into these safes? And when you have this big, impossible to open safe that is the most impossiblest of impossible safes to open, but you know he's opened it, it takes a little bit away from the tension throughout this film. It's entertainment, it just doesn't emotionally invest you. It just doesn't grip you on that higher level that it should when it comes to a film like this. Army of Thieves is a fun, funny heist trip throughout Europe with an interesting ragtag of misfits banding together with interesting relationships and dynamics bouncing off one another. I just was never invested in the actual story. I just was never invested in their actual missions, in their actual goals throughout this. It doesn't really add anything new to this cinematic universe or even to the heist genre, but it's just basic, fine entertainment. I'm giving Army of Thieves a C. Those are my thoughts on Army of Thieves. What did you think about it? Are you excited? Did you already see it? Anything and everything, add them down there in the comments below. And if you like what you saw here, make sure you click that subscribe button so you do not miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back very soon with more reviews, and I hope to see you in those. So until then, love each other and love the movies.